Hi, I'm David.
Hi, I'm Yelena.
Welcome to our tutorial on arm positions in yoga. We're going to talk about healthy positions for the arms in two different directions, above and below the shoulders. And hopefully you're going to find this useful. If you do, make sure to like this and make sure to subscribe. And let us know what else you want to see, because we want to know. And make sure also to send this to all your friends, even if they don't do yoga. Okay, they need to know healthy arm positions in yoga.
It'll help them reach for a jar safely.
That's right. Yeah, we're always using our arms. So let's start this lesson by talking about anatomical positions, because we're going to talk about rotation and flexion and extension. Simple stuff. If we're talking about rotation, it's always relative to the central line of the body. Okay, this will be important to understand. So that means Yelena's arms are down beside her. And if she rolls her arms out, so the inner elbows turn away from the body, that is external rotation. And when the arms spin in, so the inner elbow joints are turning in, or the thumbs turn in towards the body, that is internal rotation. Okay? So internal and external rotation. And when the arms are coming back like this, behind the body, below the shoulder, this is shoulder extension. And when the arms come up, this is shoulder flexion. All right? And the rotation is the same in shoulder flexion, but it'll seem a little bit confusing sometimes. So if the thumbs are rolling away from the body, you can see then the inner elbow joints are turning towards the back wall. That is external rotation. Okay, and if the thumbs turn in towards each other or towards the camera, then that is internal rotation. Okay, internal, external, internal, external. Okay, so there's two postures that are common to every yogasana practice, upward dog and downward dog. And we're going to use those two postures to kind of talk about the arm position. But these are rules. They're biomechanical rules, but they're anatomical rules. We've kind of oversimplified it slightly so that you can understand the rules and apply them to any posture, not just these two instances. Okay, but we're using these two different directions to give you kind of examples of the both ends of the spectrum. Okay. So let's start with external rotation. So external rotation is going to happen when the shoulders are flexed. That means when the arms are coming above the line of the shoulder. Okay, so you can see here the arms are in line with the shoulder, relative to the floor. And now as the arms are coming up, for a healthy shoulder position in a posture like downward facing dog, then we want the arms to externally rotate. Okay? And if we're talking about shoulder extension, like upward facing dog, when the arms are coming down below the body, we want them to internally rotate. Those are two of the rules. Okay? Above, external, below, internal. So back to downward facing dog, the arms are above. Let's look also at the shoulder blade movement. So scapula, shoulder blades, are part of the shoulders. Watch when Yelena goes into internal rotation. So that's what we don't want to do in downward facing dog. Watch what happens. The scapula kind of come in towards each other. They retract. Watch what happens when she externally rotates. So she rolls the arms out. That is what we want to do. They protract. They come away from each other and kind of create that broad upper back. Can you see it? So internal rotation, they retract, and then external rotation of the arm, they protract, right? Okay, but they don't only do that. We want them to externally rotate and protract, but we also want them to elevate. We want the scapula to elevate. That means just slide up the back towards the ears. Watch what happens when she depresses, when she pulls the scapula down the back. You can see again all the kind of muscles bunch up at the base of the ribs down here, and it feels in your shoulder like you don't have any room to stretch. So now we want to reach from the shoulders, feel the scapula slide up the back as we externally rotate, and then look at that beautiful flat shoulder position. The shoulders are like embedded in the back, and the whole back is nice and calm and strong. Okay, so external rotation and elevation of the scapula in that shoulder flexion position. And we're talking about downward facing dog, but this would apply for something like a handstand, or even if you're doing a sun salutation, yekum, that first movement of lifting the arms up, external and elevate.
And then I found this makes a huge difference also in your back bends, which at one point we'll do a tutorial and talk more about. But you can see how doing that external rotation and then finding that reach helps lift the whole rib cage away from the hips, and it creates that space in the midline of the body so you don't feel the compression that sometimes happens. So again, it's just another example in which this rule applies over and over again. If the arms are above the shoulder, external rotation, and then reach.
Okay, let's talk about when the arms are below. Remember, in upward facing dog, the arms are in extension, the shoulders are in extension, so they're below the shoulders, and we're going into internal rotation. So what's happening in the shoulder blades then? Let's see. Watch again. If Yelena is here and she does external rotation, which is what we don't want to do when the arms are below, see what happens? Retraction with the scapula. It's actually the same thing, the opposite, but it's the same effect as when she did the internal rotation in downward facing dog. So now, there you go. We don't want to do that, and we don't want to do this. Okay, we're going to try to create the same effect in the back by doing the opposite with the arms in extension. So we're going to do internal rotation, and the scapula protract, they come away from each other, and then we've also got to pull the shoulders back. So now they're going to slightly depress and downwardly rotate. The scapula are going to tip into the back here. And that's going to do that same thing where they kind of sink and embed into the back in a nice strong position. This is really good for creating space through the back. And, you know, upward facing dog is also a back bend. So it's like Yelena was saying, where we want to create space. We're creating it slightly differently now with the internal rotation, shoulders back. But we're also creating a healthy effect in the fronts of the shoulders. So many times we have students come to us because they have problems in the shoulder, pain in the front of the shoulder here, and because they're externally rotating and they're basically pulling the arm out of the shoulder socket, and the rotator cuffs start to freak out. They're trying to keep the arm in the shoulder. You know, they don't like it. So, and Yelena doesn't like it either. So what we need to do here is internally rotate, close the front of the shoulder, and then use that backward movement of the shoulder or the chest coming forward to downwardly pull the scapula or depress them down slightly and do that downward rotation. Okay? So again, that would be upward facing dog, but we can think of lots of places where we do that. What about when you pick up before you jump back, right? Or utplitihi in Ashtanga at the very end of the sequence. Anytime your arms are below, as a general rule, you can think inward rotation, shoulders back. And I would say another kind of rule on top of that is the more pressure you're putting on the shoulder, then the more important it is to do that.
Two things to keep in mind. Whenever the hands are flat on the floor, you want to have the weight evenly distributed. And I'm sure in some of the previous videos, you've heard David and I talk about putting pressure through the index knuckle. The reason why we emphasize the index knuckle is that if there's pressure there, then it means that it's going to be evenly distributed and it's not going to be dumped into the kind of corner of the palm or the outside edge of the palm, which can lead to a lot of pain and discomfort. So again, this movement in, for example, upward facing dog of spinning the arms in first ensures that the weight is brought into the index knuckle. And then, of course, the second part of that movement is to pull chest forward, which brings the shoulders back.
Yeah.
And secondly, what I was going to add is that there's a big difference that you start to feel in the way that the body begins to engage to do a pose like an upward facing dog. I remember when I started feeling sensations early in my practice, and all of the sensation of the upward facing dog was kind of here. And at first I thought that was how it's supposed to be, and it was kind of needle-like and really sharp pain. But then I realized it was because all of the pressure of the pose was being dumped into this single area. Once you start spinning the arms in and then pulling the shoulders back, you'll feel how the weight gets more distributed, all the muscles start to engage, and then that kind of stretching sensation isn't in the joint per se, but it comes across the whole front line or the upper chest as well.
Mm-hmm. And then in line with that too, going back to downward facing dog, even though we're externally rotating the arms, you do need to make sure that you keep the index knuckles of your hands flat on the floor. So don't rotate the arms out and lose your connection through the hand. Instead, try to initiate the external rotation of the arm by pressing down through the index knuckle. That's kind of a big statement, and we can go deeper into that in another tutorial sometimes. But basically, just keep your hands flat. Make sure they stay flat, okay? All right. Well, I feel like that was very quick, but slightly exhaustive, as in we dumped a lot of information on you. Remember those two rules. When the arms are below the shoulders, internal rotation, shoulders back. When the arms are above the shoulders, external rotation, shoulders reach.
And if you like this video, please make sure to like it. Comment by letting us know what else we can do, what other tutorial we should do. And of course, share it, send it to someone, and subscribe.
Bye.
Bye.